The spiraling cables triangle is a really nice DK weight triangle shaped shawl, and it's fun to customize the size because you start at the tip with an I-cord tab cast on and you work cables and stripes all the way to the border. So if you have more yarn for this pattern, you can knit the border longer or bind off early so you can customize the length a bit. But you're gonna need some DK or worsted weight yarn. Sport weight yarn is also fine too, but I use 2 skeins for my main color with that self-striping marled yarn. This one is from Shopelvola Starka 6, a really nice self-striping marled yarn. And the spiraling cables triangle is really easy to knit because it's mostly just knits and purls. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to cable without a cable needle and how to work that I-cord tab cast on along with that Pico Hem. So grab some needles and yarn, get the spiraling cables triangle. This is a single pattern on Ravelry, or you'll find it in the Hiberknitting 2 book. So let's learn those techniques and cast on the spiraling cables triangle. The spiraling cables triangle begins right here with an I-cord tab cast on using the main color, and then you start to stripe with the contrast colors. So we'll learn that I-cord tab cast on and start cabling. You're going to need a main color like Westwool Tandem or any DK or worsted weight yarn. So 2 skeins will be enough to knit that large shawl shape of your main color. And then you can get some contrast colors, or just one contrast color is okay. But you're going to need about 435 yards or so total of your contrast color. So you could do 3 different shades, like these Spin Cycle Dream State yarns for the contrast color. Or you could use this Zauberball. This is the thicker version of Zauberball called Starka 6. It's more of a sport weight, DK weight, a little bit thinner than the Spin Cycle. But this is the yarn that I used for this sample, and it's beautifully drapey. Really nice with that DK weight main color, and the contrast color is a little bit thinner. But we're going to cast on with the main color with 3 stitches, and you can use any cast on method you like to get this shawl started. I'm using the long tail cast on. That's my go-to cast on method. And once you have 3 stitches, knit 3, and then slip those 3 stitches onto your left needle. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to repeat that twice more. Knit 3, slip 3. Knit 3, and slip 3. One more time. Knit 3, and slip 3. Once you knit those little stitches, you're going to have an I-cord tail, just like this. And we need to knit 3 a final time. So all 3 stitches are on your right needle. Now pick up and knit 3 stitches along the I-cord edge. I'm going to dive into both legs of an I-cord row, right there. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. Pull that yarn through. 6 total stitches. Turn to work next row, wrong side. So on the wrong side, we need to pick up and knit 3 stitches along the cast on edge, starting with the stitch closest to the left needle tip. Okay, what does that mean? We're going to get 3 stitches from this cast on edge. Get a strand here and knit it. Pick up a next strand. That could be here or here. It doesn't really matter. Get a second strand, and we need a 3rd final strand. Where is that? That works. You could just stick your needle in and see what you get. But this is a strand of yarn. So pick up and knit 3. It's going to look something like that. And if anything looks like a little boo-boo, we're going to turn it into a woo-woo by just doing some surgery with this little tail. So don't worry about it. You got those 3 stitches. You're ready to purl 3. 1, 2, 3. And slip those last 3 stitches with yarn in front. Just like that. And we're going to do that at the end of every row. Always have the yarn in front to slip those last 3 stitches purlwise. Setup rows. Row 1, right side. We're going to need our contrast color for row 1, and we're going to knit 3, and then knit front back. Knit into the front and the back of the stitch, and then take it off to increase 1 stitch. knit to last 3 stitches. That's just a couple stitches right there. And when you reach the last 3 stitches, slip 3 with yarn in front. We just increased 1 stitch. You should have 10 stitches now after row 1. Row 2, wrong side. Knit to last 3 stitches. And then slip 3 with yarn in front. Bring the yarn forward to slip 3. Keep both colors attached because as you repeat the rows, we're going to stripe contrast color and main color and just carry them up along the edge. When you're striping the colors, just grab the next color. I need to do the main color for row 3. It's as simple as that. Just bring it up along the wrong side. There's no right or wrong way. Just grab that color. Row 3 using main color. Knit 3. Knit front back. Knit to last 3 stitches. And slip 3 with yarn in front. Now you have 11 stitches. We just increased 1 stitch at the beginning of the row. Row 4, wrong side. Knit 3. Purl to last 3 stitches. We're always going to purl on the wrong side with the main color. And slip those last 3 stitches with yarn in front. And repeat those last 4 rows 3 more times until you have 17 total stitches. So we have these garter ridges with the contrast color and stockinette stripes with your main color. I just finished the setup rows and I worked rows 1 and 2 for section 1. So I'm ready for row 3 with my main color. So when you work rows 1 and 2, you're slipping stitches, and whenever you slip stitches, make sure that you slip with the yarn in back on the right side. So when you're working a right side row, slip with yarn in back, and when you're working a wrong side row, you want to slip with yarn in front. Do you see those little ladders? So when you slip the stitches, those little floats carry along the back side of the work. So this is what your project should look like, ready for row 3, right side. I have 20 stitches on my needles after finishing row 2. So bring up the main color for row 3, and we need to start cabling. Knit 3, knit front back with the main color. Knit 1, cable 4 back, knit 8 to last 3 stitches. Cable 4 back means we're going to cross the stitches, so the first 2 go in the back. So to do that without a cable needle, I take the second batch of stitches, the last 2 stitches, and I take my needle out and slide it in. And then pop those stitches onto my left needle and knit all 4 stitches. This is a cable 4 back, 2 stitches crossing behind the other 2 stitches. Let's do that one more time. So you've got your 4 main color stitches, and we're going to do the cable 4 back. Insert the needle into these 2 stitches, and then we're going to take the needle out of everything and back into those 2. Pop them onto the left needle and knit all 4 stitches. So that's what I do for every cable 4 back. It's really easy, you don't need a cable needle, and that's what the cross looks like. To finish the row, we have cable 4 back, knit 8 to last 3 stitches. So whenever we're working row 3, we only need to do that once, cable 4 back, knit 8, and we're already at the last 3 stitches. As you make more repeats of this spiraling cables pattern, you'll eventually have more cables that come into play, that join the shawl party, but we just have 1 cable for now. Row 4, wrong side, knit 3, purl to last 3 stitches. Every time you work with the main color, we're always going to purl on the wrong side. And when you're working with the main color on the right side, my light blue, that's the cable row. So you're always going to work a cable cross on the right side with main color. And the contrast color rows are going to be real simple. we're just going to slip stitches and get a garter ridge. So let's do row 5 with the contrast color. Knit 3, knit front back, knit 2, slip 4 with yarn and back, knit 8 to last 3 stitches. So slip 4 with yarn and back, slip those 4 main color stitches, and knit 8. Once you reach the last 3 stitches, always slip 3 with the yarn in front, and let's do one more row. Let's do row 6, wrong side, knit 3, knit 8, slip 4 to last 7 stitches. So we're going to knit those 8, slip 4 with yarn in front. Always slip with yarn in front on the wrong side, slipping those main color stitches. And then knit 4 and slip the last 3 with yarn in front. So those are the techniques, stripes and cables. Try it without a cable needle. It gets much easier the more you practice. And keep on following that section 1 with the spiraling cables. You're going to increase at the beginning of the row and get more and more stitches as you join new cabled columns into your shawl. And after you master those cables, you're going to reach the cabled trellis. And it's the same techniques, cabling and slipping stitches, but the cables start to move. So instead of always crossing the same cables, you're going to have cables that move to the right and cables that move to the left. So pay really close attention to the stitch counts and instructions for that cabled trellis section, and then you'll be off knitting to the border. And that's all you need to know for this simple shawl. I love the size of this spiraling cables triangle because you can just keep on repeating this border. If you want it longer and you have more yarn, you can make it bigger if you want before starting the border. But follow the instructions as written and you can get a size exactly like mine as well. A beautiful spiraling cables triangle. Let's learn how to do that border for a Pico hem. It's going to be a reversible stockinette stitch hem with these little picots. And to set up your border, just follow all the border rows very closely, and you'll be getting something that looks like this. So this same Pico hem is used for the spiraling cables triangle and the cabled trellis shawl. So here's a mini spiraling cables triangle example, but it's the same border technique for this cabled trellis shawl that's right here. So both patterns have that same Pico hem. So set up your border like this. You're going to get those yarn over rows and that beautiful stockinette stitch. And to finish, we're going to do next row right side. I'm going to show you that instruction that says knit 1 together with a picked up stitch from the wrong side. So again, you should have something that looks like this with those yarn overs in the middle of that stockinette stitch. And when you fold the border over, look at that. That's what gives you that beautiful hem. So next row right side, when it says knit 1 together with a picked up stitch from the wrong side, we're going to dive down below. And the first time you do that, we're going to do that by picking up a little I-cord stitch. So I know that I'm going to need 3 I-cord stitches picked up. So this is going to be my first one, and then my second one, and my third one. So I'm just preparing, and I know I need to get 3 I-cord stitches eventually. So I'll go here for my first one. So we're going to pick up and knit that stitch together with the first stitch, and then knit next stitch together with the picked up stitch from the wrong side. So we're going to do that again. Right there, we'll get another I-cord stitch. And after you do that, you're going to pass the first stitch over to bind off 1 stitch. Now keep on doing that. Knit next stitch together with a picked up stitch from the wrong side and pass the first stitch over. All right, those were all my little I-cord stitches. Now we're going to keep on doing that. And as you turn to look at the wrong side to pick up the next stitch, let's see, where can we go? Just start by going into those pearl bumps that you see on the wrong side. Knit those together and pass over. And then get the next purl bump. Knit it together with that next stitch and pass the first one over. So I'm going, right here, that first time I see that full main color of those bumps, we're going to pick that up and knit it. And pick up the next bump and knit it together with the next live stitch. And don't forget to pass. So there should always be one stitch on your right needle, and that means you're ready to pick up and knit the next purl bump. So that's the technique. And as you go, if it's hard to see which bump to pick up into, it might be easier if you want to go into these contrast color bumps. You could pick up those and knit each one of those together with a live stitch. And just check every now and then, as you are binding off, you could trace your stitch down. So, okay, this is my stitch. I need to get a bump from the wrong side about right here. You can pinch the fabric and look at the wrong side and see where you are. Okay, I need to get something right there. It doesn't have to be too exact, okay? So you could get this bump or that little contrast bump, or, you know, if it's the next one, that's okay. But more or less, they should line up as you bind off. And that's gonna be the technique. You're gonna get that nice little bind off with the folded Pico hem. And as you work that Pico hem, I did it with the main color on the right side. And if you have enough main color, you could do it on the wrong side as well. But I used most of my main color. So on this sample, I used the main color for the first rows of the hem. And then on the wrong side of the hem, I used my contrast color. So I had more of my contrast color left over in my project. So I used that on the wrong side, so I didn't run out of my main color. But you could even do an entire hem with the contrast color or a totally new color. So if you feel like you're running out of that main color after you finish the cables in your shawl, before you start that hem, you might want to choose just a totally different color or skip straight ahead to using that contrast color for all of these border rows. So yeah, don't worry if you start to run out. You could just, you know, get creative, stripe your main color with your contrast color, use an extra color. Yeah, use the yarn you have left over to make that border work, and it's gonna put a finishing touch to that beautiful cabled trellis shawl or the spiraling cables triangle. Once you finish your project, you're gonna have a few ends to weave in. So whenever I weave in ends for my projects, I like to just do a simple whip stitch by taking an end and pulling it through a purl bump on the wrong side of the fabric. And I do this about 10 or 12 times. A little whip stitch. You could do a bunch all at the same time too, like this. Dive into those bumps and pull the yarn through. And that's going to do it for weaving in your ends. And when you cut the yarn, just cut the yarn and snip it with some scissors about right there. You know, not too close because then it's going to come out a little bit, but snip it, or just break the yarn too. And that's enough to weave in your ends right there. And I'll do that a couple more times here at the beginning of my cast on corner. So when you're weaving in those ends, just whip stitch them through. And whenever you're weaving in ends at the cast on edge, it's usually a smaller little tab or a smaller corner, so you can go back and forth a couple times. Go towards the end of the row, and then turn and go back the other way. And that's enough to keep those ends secure. Really simple. Cut that end, and after you weave in your ends, you can soak the shawl in some cool water. So soak it in some cool water, and then just squeeze that water out so it becomes not too soaking wet, but squeeze all the water out that you can. And I like to roll my shawls up into a towel to dampen the water, and I just lay these shawls flat to dry. So I didn't pin any of my shawls if you just want those smooth edges. So just lay them flat to dry, If you want to exaggerate the shape, when you pin out the shawls, you could pin the wingspan edge of your shawl first. So I place it on a mattress or blocking mats or on a rug and pin the wingspan first, just every now and then, like here, here, place some pins in the fabric. And then if you want to stretch out that border, you could place a pin into every cable cross here at the border of your shawl. And that could exaggerate and make this kind of scalloped border effect. So you could really stretch it out when you block it to get that huge size. But I didn't do that with this shawl. I just soaked it and just lay it out flat. Just coax the fabric out, stretch it out a little bit to smooth the edges, and that's all there is to it. Just soak the shawl, lay it flat to dry, and enjoy your finished cabled trellis shawl. Well, enjoy knitting this shawl. I can't wait to see all your marled and striped color combos. It's a really easy one too to use leftover stripes. So if you don't want to do that self-striping contrast color, you could customize those contrast color stripes using bits of solid or semi-solid yarns you have lying around. But give it a go and share your progress on Instagram or Ravelry. Use hashtag #SpiralingCablesTriangle for those projects, and I can't wait to knit the next shawl with you.